You're listening to a Comics XF podcast.
X-Men. Get it!
Hey everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Battle of the Atom. This is your weekly X-Men podcast where we rank every story from A to Z.
Major Adam.
And I'm Colonel Zach. Actually, that's not true. I am the werewolves that were inside of Colonel Zach.
Yeah.
And are wearing his skin as if it was a werewolf skin suit.
Do werewolves have like military rank in Mojoverse?
That's a great question. No, they're a Marxist collective.
Oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense. You know, they travel in packs, and so Zach, we didn't have a request this week, so we decided to do the dumbest thing we possibly could.
No, I disagree with that. The dumbest thing that we possibly could do involves comics that you could only get in copy of the magazine TV guide and on mini CDs from Burger King.
Listen, we'll do that eventually, right?
Eventually. I do believe it is on the list somewhere.
Yeah.
But no, we did pick the one thing that I think we both desperately always want to talk about, and that is Major X.
Major X.
Major X.
Major X. We have talked about the latter era of the Rob's career on this show before. This is like the most recent Marvel stuff he's done, and woof, it sure is something.
Just to tell you my commitment to this.
Please.
Not only did I read all of the comics that are in this episode.
Right.
I also read some of Rob's other recent Marvel work, such as Deadpool Team Up and this other one that he did that I'm blanking on. It was another Deadpool, Batterblood. I read Deadpool Batterblood.
Oh, yes. I also visited one issue of the book we've already covered, which was X-Force Volume 2, because I was a little bit confused about the appearance of a character that appears in one of these stories and then it pops back up in another, even though I'm pretty sure the Rob killed him in between. So
which character is that?
That would be the administrator, Zach.
Yes, he did kill the administrator in
X-Force Volume 2.
Yes. Hey, folks, do you want us to talk about good comics and not this? Or do you want us to talk about bad comics in general? Well, have I got a program for you, and it's called patreon.com/Battle of the Atom. You can reach deep down into your hearts and pocketbooks and toss a couple, just a few, just a pittance of coins into our coffers. And then collectively, we will take that and we will ask you, hey, what do you want us to talk about?
Yeah.
What do you want us to do? And we'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter if it's bad or dumb. We'll just do it. And that's upsetting for all of us. I understand. Listen, it makes my life interesting, but
this is our lot in life. So sometimes we do it to ourselves, and today is one of those days.
Today's the most done it to ourselves thing ever. We do need to start, though, with a comic that does not involve Major X directly, but is oddly important to all of Major X's lore.
Yeah, like it is and it isn't at the same time. So we are going to start with 2 issues of Wolverine Volume 2 from the year 2000. This is Wolverine 154 and 155, which is drawn by the Rob, plotted by the Rob, scripted by Image's own Eric Stevenson, and inked by Extreme Studios alum Norm Rapmond.
So here's the thing. If you had been reading Wolverine at the time, you would have known that after Larry Hama left, there was a lot of figuring out what this book was going to be. So there were a couple years that Larson was on, or a couple of arcs where Eric Larson was on the book. There's a Warren Ellis thing. Claremont jumps in at some point, I believe. Maybe that's after this. Doesn't matter. Regardless, boy, oh boy, did they not know what Wolverine was as a book. And the weird thing about Wolverine Volume 2 is that there are like runs of it.
Sure.
Like Frank Thierry and Greg Pak both end up having a Pak does right at the end. No, he doesn't. Daniel Way does that. He jumps to Volume 3. Anyway, there's some runs, but there's not a lot. And the book essentially stays insane and with no real creative team until Jason Aaron gets on it like a decade later.
Yep.
I say all this to say Wolverine's a book that they did not know what to do with. And it was just throw things at the wall. And this was another thing they threw at the wall.
Kind of crazy. Like, it's such a slam dunk that it's really wild. Now, in terms of a quote unquote run, Rob Liefeld lasts only 2 issues on this on art duties and only writes/plots like 4 issues of the book before disappearing again.
Not much, but he does do some Ages of Apocalypse stuff.
Sure. But I mean, he's gone in a heartbeat. And
yes, it is not long.
2 issues are incredibly dumb, but the Rob would have you believe that they are incredibly important to the overall mythos of X-Force, Major X, Wolverine, Deadpool, etc.
Cable, all of the Robsiverse characters.
Yes. And these 2 issues are so important, apparently, that they were reprinted as part of Major X Zero, which we will touch on later after we get into the Major X series proper.
Major X Zero did come out after Major X's 1 through 6.
Yeah, they did. They did.
Just to be clear.
Yeah.
So this is a story that starts in media res. Wolverine is facing off against some new weird little freaks. And I've got to say, Rob, not an amazing character designer, all things considered. Not my favorite artist, and I hate him in deeper and more specific ways than others do, and I'm better because of that, and we'll get into that later.
Sure.
Credit where credit is due for the Rob Liefeld. Pigskin, Vance Rebus, Deadeye Dick, Mega Max, Reckless Eric, and Minimax. You know, the Scourge. That's a good team name.
Listen,
he has named so many good characters there.
Yeah, Rob, one of the things that I really honed in on in reading these books is that the Rob has such a stale recipe that he relies on over and over and over again in his work, where he is the one that is doing the plotting. And, you know, aside from guys in masks and or helmets, characters that are secretly related or, you know, doppelgangers of each other, whatever it might be, the third most prevalent thing that the Rob likes to do is just introduce random teams of new characters. So not only does he introduce a new team of villains in this book and then not have them fight Wolverine, they just stand around while Deadpool fights Wolverine. Then in the second issue, he introduces another team of superheroes, very much like he did, when he was doing Youngblood. And he just throws these characters into the mix, and you're like, who are these people?
That's Hardwire, Shooter, and Geronimo Crow.
Yes. And
the Rob is so good at coming up with names, though. Like, he is that kid that wrote 1 million names in his notebook and said, these are all you need for a character is this very good image name. Like, we're used to saying Deadpool. Deadpool is also a dumb name. Deadpool is a very the Rob name. It's 2 words smashed together, one of them being extreme.
The other thing that I think, is funny is that while the names might be good and the character designs themselves leave a lot to be desired, they usually involve, the same kinds of like headbands or guns for arms or whatever it may be. And
weird
sometimes
pauldrons.
Yeah. And sometimes you really even can't tell characters apart. So when
weird things going on with people's eyes.
Yeah. When this issue begins, it does look like Wolverine has already killed one of the Scourge, which is Vance Rebus, Only it turns out that the guy who looks like Vance Rebus is also the character design for all of the administrator's henchmen. So
he killed Reckless Eric is who he killed.
so sure, great. But
How
also,
do you not know the difference between Vance Rebus and Reckless Eric?
but also he's trying to set up this big bad of the administrator and his evil organization, the Watchtower. And at the same time, he has one of the henchmen in the Scourge known as Deadeye Dick, who looks exactly like the administrator. Like they're
Yes.
exactly the same design. So
Hey,
okay.
I have not read this era of comics like in general, but this is like a Wildstorm Authority thing, right? Like he's trying to do a riff on that. Like
I
Stormwatch.
guess. I honestly could not tell you. It sounds like the Rob is in it for potential new toy deals, royalty deals. Like, let me throw as many characters into these 2 issues as I possibly can. And
Marvel, this is post bankruptcy. This is not recovery. This is literally the darkest year for Marvel in terms of like their sales and what's going on with them. Like this is the turnaround year.
Yeah.
So it's shocking that Rob would have been doing that. I think this is just the only thing he knows how to do.
Well, that's the thing. I don't think that he can get out of this mode. I think this is all he knows how to do is, Deadpool's here and he and Wolverine are going to like kind of float across the pages for about 5 or 6 pages so that we can kind of do like pin-up panels. Backgrounds are optional. I don't know where these characters are.
There's no spatial awareness to this. And I'll say in this issue, his anatomy's not good.
Oh, it's terrible.
I do think his anatomy is better in the year 2000 than it was in the year 2019.
It will get worse. There are a lot of lines here. And I Norm Rapmond is inking this and really adding, as much hair as he can to Wolverine, as many marks to Deadpool's noseless face as possible. But the hallmarks of the Rob stuff is still here. The skinny, flattened cardboard guns.
I've been staring at those guns since I was rereading these. I don't understand those guns.
Yeah.
There's so much about this I don't fully get. By the way, in terms of plot, just because we kind of skimmed past it.
There ain't much of it.
They get captured. Deadpool is hired by the administrator to capture Wolverine and take him to the Watchtower where he's going to study his mutant healing factor.
Mm-hmm.
Then Geronimo Crow and these other people that we've never met, or at least I don't remember them.
Nope, never been on page before.
They just kind of show up and stop it, and Wolverine says, "I'm going to track you down and stop you, Administrator." Will never happen. Wolverine does not do that.
No, Wolverine says he will never sleep. He will never rest until he has taken care of the Administrator and the Watchtower. He never sees the Watchtower or the Administrator ever again.
Wolverine is never involved in anything involving the Watchtower or the Administrator. No. Also, the Administrator has captured Siren after she got her throat feraled.
Yes.
So, and that gets fixed. So Siren can do that and do the weird thing that they were doing for a while with her and Deadpool being a thing. It's just, I don't know. I haven't read the like actual 90s run of Deadpool, but
yeah. Well,
I got
be hard pressed to
Siren dating him.
If she weren't going you wouldn't know that it's Teresa. She's just a random lady in a silver bikini.
The Rob Liefeld special.
There's also a Sentinel with dreadlocks. Don't ask. I don't know what to tell you.
Okay. Listen. That rules, actually.
Does it? Okay.
The Sentinel with dreadlocks that they actively talk about. Hey, it's weird that you have a Sentinel, right? Like, here's what I'll say. Because the Rob does not often script his own comics at this point. And doesn't script all of what we are talking about. Eric Stevenson, a guy who does know how to write, is trying to like spin this into gold. And I'm not saying Eric Stevenson knows how to write well, but he has he writes much better dialogue than Rob Liefeld and has a better sense of story. Like, there's a reason Savage Dragon's been going on for a bit.
Are you confusing Eric Stevenson with Eric Larson?
I am. Which one's Eric Stevenson?
Eric Stevenson is he started with Liefeld's Max Extreme or
is he
Maximum Press.
He's like a money guy at
he eventually became the publisher of it. And,
that's right.
But you're bringing up a good point in that Stevenson like is a better scripter than Liefeld will. We'll get to that, just shortly. But Stevenson does something similar to like what Bowers and Sims do when they work with him on Bad Blood and Badder Blood, in that they have a sense of humor about what Liefeld is doing.
Yes.
And, is okay with teasing it. Now, when Liefeld writes himself, he takes himself much more seriously. So there's that.
These are all weird designs, unremarkable characters, and if you were to tell me that there would be a sequel to this story 20 years later, I'd say, what, is Rob writing it or something? Because no one else is using this.
And sequel in the loosest of terms, folks. Like, this is like, it's really interesting to me that, Marvel promised a Major X-Zero issue, and instead of the Rob drawing a Major X-Zero issue, he drew like a couple pages in the beginning, a couple pages in the end, and was like, hey, can we just reprint these old issues of Wolverine?
It was always going to be a reprint thing. That was, you may not remember this, Adam. Major X sold decently well in stores.
Yes.
Like, is my understanding is that it did well by itself. So they were just trying to ride that wave a little bit longer. And then, unfortunately, for Major X, we'll get to that after we rank. We should rank first.
Yes. So, Zach, why don't you tell us a little bit about this show's big old list?
So I absolutely will do that. My computer on one side is freezing.
Do you want me to talk about the big old list?
Just 1 second. The Geronimo Crow tab broke my computer.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
It's specifically telling me it was Geronimo Crow's fault. So this is not on-air content anymore. This is Zach's vamping until he can control alt delete very specific tabs.
I mean, I could talk about Geronimo Crow for a second, because he's basically just color changed Sam Guthrie. Like, he has the pilot goggles on top and like kind of little vest. Like, if you just colored him a little bit differently, he basically would look like Sam Guthrie. But it is interesting that the Rob goes back for these like characters that may or may not be Native American ? Like, he did this in X-Force Volume 2, I want to say too, because like, what was the character in X-Force Volume 2? It was John Spector. Who was John Spector? Not
John Wraith?
No, not John Wraith.
I heard John Wraith, played by Will.i.am, of course, as we what we all remember is who everyone played in X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Hard to forget.
Adam, I'm going to ask you this, because I think you should know this, but you might not. Who did Dominic Monaghan play in X-Men Origins Wolverine? Which mutant character?
Oh, wait. Hold on.
You cannot look this up. You need to know off the dome who Dominic Monaghan played.
Oh, who was he though? Because, okay, hold on. Because
it's not a mutant. It's a mutant that you would know more than me, but it is not a mutant that, like...
There was John Wraith. There was
John Wraith,
Gambit,
played by Will.i.am.
There was
Gambit, played by Taylor Kish.
Yeah.
Who, I'm going to say this. Taylor Kish is my favorite Gambit. I'm just going to say that, and that may be because I was an OG Friday Night Lights person. Like, I watched that show live because it was more than football. It was family. And I've always wanted Taylor Kish to do better for himself. Anyway.
Oh, he was Maverick.
No, he wasn't.
But he was supposed to be, right?
Nope.
Who was he?
He was Bolt, Maverick's son, who is the mutant that gets the legacy virus in a bunch of those X-Men Unlimited stories. Anyway, Maverick is not in the movie in his Maverick form. However, his alias as Agent Zero is in that movie. He's the guy that Wolverine shoots a helicopter at.
Oh, right.
Or a
God,
motorcycle at while he's in a helicopter.
What a movie. What a movie.
Agent Zero, Maverick, who is Bolt's father.
Yes.
Also, the guy from season 4 of Lost is there as Fred Dukes.
Yes.
The bad guy from season 4 of Lost. Emma Frost is also there.
At the end. Zach, did your list come back?
It did. I'm sorry. You got me talking about X-Men Origins Wolverine, a thing I talk about. Great vamping, by the way. Very proud of what you did there.
No problem.
We'll just have to clean that up for the edit to get nice and tight.
I'm not editing any of that. That was great.
Please edit.
That was comedy gold. Keep going.
Just edit out the blocks of time where I was silent before you were talking.
Okay.
Anyway, when we're talking about our list, we're talking about the big old list that we've been keeping track of for so many years now.
Yeah.
Where we have ranked 1,011 X-Men stories from best to worst. And that's too many. The best X-Men story of all time is the House of X Powers of 10 at number 1. At number 250, we have The Secret Life of Eva Bell annuals.
Ooh.
Generation Hope Schisms at 500. Gambit from the Marvel Vaults at 750. At 1,000, it's X-Force Volume 2, X-Force and Cable, The Legend Returns. We'll be talking about that comic soon. And the worst comic in X-Men history is 2099 World of Tomorrow. Okay, All Along the Watchtower, which, by the way, Rob, you can't use that name.
He did.
Like, take the Bob Dylan and Jimi Hendrix out of it. There's already a comic that has used All Along the Watchtower pretty famously. It's like, you also probably can't use The Times They Are A-Changin' anymore. I'm sorry. Those two Bob Dylan ones are gone, the Rob.
Yeah.
Also Hallelujah, but just for the movie reasons.
Well, Zach, you mentioned it. We're down at 1,000 here with X-Force Volume 2, parentheses, X-Force and Cable, The Legend Returns. Better or worse than X-Force Volume 2?
This is a terrible comic. Truly atrocious.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the Rob's art later in more depth, but a really ugly book.
Yes.
A book that is not... A book that, when I talk about art, I mean... The storytelling in comics is just poor panel-to-panel reading.
Yes.
Also, the plot is nonsensical.
Yes.
It is the last vestiges of a dying age, is what this comic is.
Mm-hmm.
It is better than X-Force Volume 2, though.
It is better than X-Force Volume 2, but I am going to say it is not better than at 997 Witchblade Wolverine.
I'm gonna say that that's fine.
Were you gonna go higher?
No, I was looking up the list, and like at 992 is Logan Dies from the Mark Guggenheim Wolverine. That's where Wolverine has to fight the Angel of Death every time he comes back to life, and a girl gets fridged, and he's too sad to fight the Angel of Death.
Yeah.
This is worse than that, though. Yeah, actually, no, I think that's right. Witchblade and Wolverine do have Witchblade and Wolverine getting married.
Yeah.
And I think that's special.
Yes. So this is going to put it right above the original Volume 1 of NYX 1 through 7, which has a little too much underage girl stuff for our comfort level. So this
is also just a poorly written comic.
Yeah.
But
so this
it can be both.
998 Wolverine 154 to 155. And if you were wondering where your Major X content is, well, folks, we have arrived. It is time.
I'm glad we're making people wait a half hour. Folks, if you don't know about Major X, because this is not the most well-known X-Men character, it was a character created by the Rob Liefeld in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
He's wearing like
a bucket. He's got a bucket head.
He's wearing a bucket on his head with a big red X on it. He has a Deadpool style tight suit with an X that's black and red with an X on the chest and like a glowing egg on it. He has guns and swords, just like Deadpool. He looks like a knockoff Deadpool is what he does. Like you know what I'll tell you what Major X looks like, Adam.
What does Major X look like?
This is going to be an ultra niche reference that I honestly could not tell you what any brands are. But back when I was a child,
when I was a lad,
my parents were deeply, deeply poor.
Okay.
They were in married student housing at a Christian college, where my dad was going to be a pastor. He did not finalize that.
Okay.
they had children young. Me and my sister were very young, and that meant that there was very little money in the house early on in my life. I say all that to say that one year at Christmas, around Christmas time, my parents entered a contest that I want to say a Kmart and won like a shopping spree, like $100 gift card shopping spree.
Okay.
And they made a decision that they were looking down the toy aisle. They knew that I loved Power Rangers at the time.
Ah,
we're getting there. We're getting there.
I didn't expect Major X to bring on autobiography time. Let's go.
Me either, but let's keep going. But I specifically wanted the Power Rangers, the Mighty Morphing ones, that if you hit their belt, their heads would flip. This was very popular at the time.
That's fun.
I eventually did get all of them later in life, but that's a whole different story. I stole one of them from a child. And I was a teenager at the time, too. It was just really important to me to steal from this child. That's not the... It was Zach. It was the one that was named after me, which was my favorite, that I was always spiteful that I never had that one as a kid, even though I ended up getting all of the rest.
Gotcha.
Not at that Christmas, though. At that Christmas, they decided that they could get me some of the... they could get me the Power Rangers, and that's it, because that's like 6 action figures, and if you're splitting $100 between 2 people, 2 kids, that's not a lot. Or they could get me the Kmart generic Power Rangers that you got all of them with less articulation.
Sure.
For the same price as one of the official Power Rangers. And I played with the heck out of those things, and they all look like Major X. They all look like Major X. I don't have them. I will go to my mom's basement and find them because I know she still has them. They look like Major X.
You know what, Zach? The rest of those generic action figures will come back in Major X Zero when we learn that Major X is part of a small contingent of military fighters trying to protect the mutant paradise known as existence.
Yes. Okay. So the thing about existence is that it is a mutant utopia that they went to.
Yeah. Several months before Krakoa.
The event right before Krakoa was also a more different mutant utopia.
I know.
This is just for... I think some people give Krakoa the appropriate amount of credit, and some people may give it too much credit. The ideas weren't all... the execution was way more important than the ideas. And I think this is a beautiful example because this is also a utopia ran by a charismatic leader.
Mummy child.
Weird mummy child. Do not know what his deal is.
He is the existential, not existential, the existential.
I was saying it as the exential.
Sure.
Which makes equally bad sense. Anyway, Major X has to save this universe because the Atlanteans, we'll get back to them in a second.
Oh boy, the Atlanteans.
The Atlanteans are angry at the mutants. And Major X goes back in time to fix this using his what is his buy all your play sets and toys bike called?
Zach, that would be the Mother Bike.
The Mother Bike.
Mother Bike.
Mother Bike is funny because it's him doing a Mother Box riff from like Fourth World,
I guess.
And it is sending you it is doing like a boom tube kind of thing. So I like the name Mother Bike better than I should. It's not good.
It's pretty funny because he incorporates this Mother Bike but doesn't know how to draw it.
It honestly,
it just looks really dumb, and or is a silhouette in most of its, and then it doesn't appear for the rest of the 5 issues. So,
folks, I'm going to say this about the Rob's art. A lot of people, including 3 major motion pictures for some ungodly reason, have made jokes about how the Rob can't draw feet.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that he can. I'm just saying, look at Rob Liefeld comic and tell me that the lack of feet are in the top 10 artistic complaints that you have. 1, you a freak if you're looking for feet that close in a comic. 2 through 7, have you seen the way he draws anything else? I'm sorry.
Especially in 2019, where he's doing like a very poor impression of himself. I mean, it's so bad.
He is like a Awesome Comics wannabe who couldn't make it, except for he's also the Rob.
Yeah. And, I talked before about the Rob recipe and
the Robcipe.
The Robcipe. Oh, the Robcipe. That's good. The Robcipe.
Give me a Robcipe. We've got it. Episode title right there.
It's on full display here because we've already got guys in masks and helmets. There will be more. We are going to get introduced to, we've already been introduced to Major X. We're going to
we haven't, Adam, as you and me have not explained Major X, we haven't actually told anyone who Major X is besides a soldier from the future, vis-a-vis Cable.
Well, I'm getting to that because what was number 2 on my list? Characters that are secretly related. So who does Major X turn out to be, Zach?
Major X is Cable's son, Alexander Nathaniel Summers.
Sure. I think the weirder part is who his mother is.
Yes, which we don't get till the end of the series. His mom's Storm?
Don't like that.
Here's the thing. I am not objectively against Cable and Storm being a couple.
I am. I think that's weird.
Listen, Cable gets around. Storm, lives her own life. She would appreciate Cable. They have very limited interaction, so it's a weird pairing. It's I'm not against it. It's just those aren't the two names I would have if I wanted to be Cable's person from the future, even of actually I'm trying to think of other X. I mean Domino. Cable just doesn't hang out with the X-Men. That's the friggin' problem.
No,
or he hangs out with his mom.
If you read the interview at the end of Major X #1, the Rob
would not do that.
The Rob claims that Cable and Storm had some kind of chemistry back in the 90s, and I'm she was a child before Extinction Agenda.
No, okay, no. I do not want to give it to the Rob, but
what is he talking about?
He is talking very specifically about Storm Volume 1, where she goes to fight Mikhail Rasputin on the hill.
Oh.
There is some flirting between Storm and Cable in that miniseries, and I believe that miniseries alone. So I have to assume that's what he's talking about, because I don't think they met on page before that.
Anyway, I don't like that. It's
just a weird pairing. Also, when we're talking about the Rob's art, I know that it is a common thing to talk about how white artists don't know how to draw black hair. I'm not an artist. I'm not saying that I know how to talk about these things. It's just Alexander has 5 different haircuts in this comic, and that's just because the Rob can't draw the same thing twice and doesn't know what this guy's hair should look like.
No, Alexander has white Storm hair that is in.
It's also white Cable hair. Cable has white hair. Duh, that's how genetics work, Adam.
Yeah, I guess. He has Cable's streak as well. When he first takes off his helmet, he has one of Cable's black streaks of hair, that's not how these things work. Anyway, God, we haven't even gotten to McCoy.
McCoy is. Maybe he's Hank McCoy from the future. It doesn't matter. He's Beast. He's Beast in this.
He's white, gray Beast with a red X spray painted on him.
Yeah, McCoy's fine. Honestly, I think McCoy's the most charming and funny part of this entire comic.
I guess.
Because
it sure ain't Dreadpool.
The Rob's not taking McCoy seriously. He's taking everything so seriously beyond that. You bring up Dreadpool, and we do have to talk about Dreadpool. Dreadpool, we haven't even started. Major X gets sent back to New Mutants 98 is where Major X gets sent back to get Cable for something.
Is that what's happening?
That's more or less what's happening.
I mean,
because then Deadpool shows up to fight them in the Danger Room.
Yeah.
But then, knowing about this, the Watchtower people have sent Dreadpool, who looks like Deadpool with a red hood, like Jason Todd Red Hood mask. And also Cable's arm pads.
To be clear, Dreadpool is just Deadpool with a couple of extra lines on his face. And it's really...
From a design standpoint. From a character standpoint, it is definitely not Deadpool. We don't know who Dreadpool is.
No, and we don't ever need to. So now we get into Atlantean weird stuff because Cable has to give Major X time travel equipment, and so they have to fight the people that Rob created in Atlantis Attacks.
Oh, you're talking about Surf, who I forgot shows back up in here?
Yes. Yes.
That's Sharkskin, Eel, and Undertow. Folks, when we say the Rob comes up with good names, he comes up with great names. They are Atlantean mutants who do exist. Anyway, they have to fight them so that Cable can get his equipment. Interestingly enough, like we find out backstory that there's beef between the Atlanteans and the mutants. That's going to be the underlying plot of what might destroy the existence or whatever. It's dumb. But what we do get, what I think is interesting, is the Rob not drawing this.
No, I think that's important for people to know who haven't read Major X, is that even though it is 6 issues long with a 0 issue, the Rob only draws the 1st and the 6th issue. The rest of the issues are drawn by Brent Peoples and Scott Hanna on inks. Will Sportaccio comes out and does an issue. Who draws 4? Peoples does 4 and 5, right?
Peoples does 4 and 5.
Yeah.
Also, by the way, this comic was coming out bi-weekly.
Yeah.
When it was actually launching, people. It was wild.
Yeah. So essentially, Major X is on a hunt through time to get the Essential Mummy Boy back, and eventually the Essential, when they find him...
Oh, the Essential's been... Oh, yeah,
puts himself into the body of a small Genosian child who looks like an adult woman on the cover, but turns out to be a child on the inside, which means that Rob Liefeld doesn't know how to draw children.
You forgot they have to save the Essential from. Sorry, folks, I know this is very confusing.
The book is very confusing.
It's a hard comic to understand what's happening. The Essential is being held by the Watchtower. Sure. Vance Rebus is there. The administrator's there.
Dies again. The administrator dies again.
By the way, the administrator Defo died in
X-Force Volume 2, number 4.
Yes, that we had just ranked. So, oops, Rob doesn't care. Anyway, long story short, they have to team up with the X-Men to stop Nomar and Namor and all of the other Atlanteans from destroying the existence. That is the very weird disassembled era team. So it's like Jean Grey, Nightcrawler, Storm, Bishop, Jubilee, and Iceman, which isn't like a weird team. It's just like there were no stories about them.
It's so strange. I also, like, as the book was proceeding, had no idea what time period we were in. Like, that's very unclear as you go from vignette to vignette. So you get these weird things where, like, Namor is there, but now he's like super old. And it's
future Namor. They've come to the regular past.
But it's very unclear how that happened. Like, and then later in issue 6, we get like old man Cable from the future with like a weird beard and a man bun. And you're like, where did he come from? Like, the Rob is just like, I'll draw whatever I want. I'll just put whatever I need. He does in
specifically
these stories.
In his issue, just throw a sea dragon in there because he wants to draw one.
Yes, it's not drawn well. It looks like a big old slug. It's pretty dumb.
Also, old Cable's weird gun, which is like one of the Rob's flat guns, but made out of like Christmas wrapping paper tubes.
It does kind of look like a baguette on the cover.
Yeah, it's worse on the inside. How is he the cool 90s guy and can't draw a gun? Like, look, say what you will about guns. They are cool to draw and look at if you know how to do it right. And boy, it seems like the Rob should have known how to do that because that was the hottest thing in 1992.
Well, the Rob did draw one really great New Mutants cover with Cable holding a really big Gatling gun. And that was a trace job of a G.I. Joe cover. So,
and it is traced inside of this as well.
Yeah. These covers are absolutely abhorrent. I mean, the Major X2 cover, I dare anyone to explain to me what is happening in Wolverine's briefs. It really looks like someone.
Adam, I can explain what's happening in Wolverine's briefs right there.
Like if you compare what's happening with Major X's area and Wolverine's area, it really does look like someone threw up in Wolverine's underwear. And perhaps Major X is like hiding something. I don't know.
It's like he doesn't know how to draw any anatomy.
No,
period.
No. Perspective is completely off. You know, it's so jarring.
I think perspective's actually the bigger thing.
Yeah. It's so jarring to see Brent Peoples, who like has like, is not the best artist in the world, but like a general house style, trying to tell this really poorly written story. Like
much less Portasio, whose issues look all right.
It is fine. It's him, you know. It does call into question, like, which is worse, Rob's drawing or his writing? Because he's also doing this thing throughout this book where he's trying to script the narration as like ostentatiously as possible to like sound so self-serious and magisterial, and it does not work. Like, it's just very poorly done.
It's like he doesn't understand what his comics are to people. Even at his peak, was anyone saying that Rob was the best writer?
No.
Of all the Image guys? Like, it was Rob, it was never the words. Your art was very interesting in the late 80s, early 90s. And you had a good job naming dudes and making action figure looking dudes.
Yeah. That's pretty much it. And, you know, if the book could have had a sense of humor about it, or, you know, tried to just kind of like embrace it, I feel like there are moments where you almost feel like it's trying to embrace that, but it's not funny. You know, like the Rob writes Deadpool as if he thinks he's being funny, but it doesn't land. It's not funny.
It isn't. You know what? Do you remember? Because look, my feelings on the Rob has gone through a lot of different things, mostly landing on I don't like that guy.
Yeah.
But like at this time, he didn't know it. But the Rob in 2019, right around when these were coming out, did appear on our podcast. He did not know that, but like
I did stumble upon the cameo video from our what is that? 100th episode?
Our 100th episode.
Where the Rob was paid by my co-host to wish us a happy 100th episode. And it is quite funny to listen to.
It is funny. It was less funny when Chip Zdarsky and a bunch of the X-Men writers did the same thing to Jonathan Hickman. I was like, that was my idea, Chipster. I did that first.
Yeah.
But that's not the point. They did that to Hickman when he was leaving. Anyway, but I think like before 2019, my feelings on the Rob were like, he knew what he was doing because he did that cover for Bloodstrike Brutalists with Michelle Fife, where he introduced the pouch. Like, Rob should have known. You remember the pouch, right?
He's
a cable made of pouches.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Like, it felt like the Rob was in on the joke and, like, was able to poke fun at himself and be okay with that for a while. And then he hit this, like, point at 2019, I think, right around when this book ended and Krakoa starts, where he really started to kind of like take offense at I don't want to psychologize this. It stopped. So
I will say, I wonder if his reaction to Krakoa was partly fed on the fact that he thought that he had the idea first.
I don't
know. Was doing it in Major X and maybe didn't like that right as his book was going, they were promoting a similar concept at the highest level of idea of Mutant Nation Island.
You know what's really funny about that, Zach? Is that he introduces the X instance, right? Which it's still very unclear what it is. Is it an alternate world? Is it an entire reality that has been created by this little mummy child? I don't know. But it is supposed to be. By the way,
the essential, the little mummy child is the most important person in all of humanity and existence.
Yes, it is supposed to be this lush, beautiful utopian paradise. The way it's drawn by Rob Liefeld, it's a pile of rocks.
It looks like a nuclear wasteland, right?
It's so weird. So weird.
I don't get. There's so much about this book I don't understand. I do understand why they published it. Like,
I guess If it was still selling, why not?
I get why they published it. It is bad, and anyone involved should feel a little bad that they were involved in this.
Yeah. So we talked about
It's
the
atrocious.
zero issue already. It really just establishes there are more Mighty Morphin Power Ranger looking dudes. They present Major X with a sword that was made
The
from
Sword of X
which was made from Wolverine's adamantium skeleton
that they found in the Watchtower.
they found in the
which,
Watchtower.
Which, by the logic of this comic, I don't fully understand how that happened, but it's fine.
Well, it's because Major X comes from an alternate reality. I don't think
Right.
he is
So this is an
616.
alternate. So they probably were able to kill the administrator a more different time.
I guess. I don't know. Is this better or worse than those Wolverine issues?
This is worse than those.
I think it's
Wolverine
worse
issues.
as well.
Like, honestly, there's a level of camp that you can read some things with. And, like, I can look at this and say it's dumb. Because here's the thing. We've ranked over 1,000 X-Men comics. We love garbage.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have to admit that, like, I was looking the other day, Adam. I was looking at the top of our list. And honestly, I think I could hand the first 5 comics on our list to anyone and say, hey, this is a good story.
Sure.
Starting with number 6, there would be an asterisk. Starting with Asgardian Wars, like, this one's out there.
Yeah.
And requires a lot of context, but it's good.
Mm-hmm.
And then it starts to get bad much higher than we would like it to start getting bad. But, like, this is bad. This goes past campy bad and just back into I'm not enjoying this.
Yeah. It's very poorly done. I would say for the basic reason that Liefeld does not draw all the issues, that there might be some slight craft that might put it above X-Force Volume 2, but I would slot it in maybe right above it. I mean,
so I would honestly put it below X-Force Volume 2.
Okay.
I think this is worse than X-Force Volume 2, and that may be because I've read this one sooner.
Yeah.
But X-Force Volume 2 gave us that Shatterstar series that he fought a dragon.
Yeah.
Below, just so we think about what's below that. Below that is the Meet the X-Men board book.
For babies.
For babies, yes. Holy War and She Lies with Angels from the Austin run, and then Ultimatum.
This is tough.
This is tough. Like, I'm thinking about, like, all new Exiles and Phoenix Resurrection, those Malibu comics.
Mm-hmm.
This is on the same level as those in terms of, like,
yeah, it is
being bad. Like, I enjoy the Chuck Austin stuff more than this as a craft. Like, I think there is more craft in those those 2 bad Chuck Austin stories. This is not worse than X-Men Phoenix Legacy of Fire, a comic that I kind of want to, after 7 years, go back to just to see if it's what I remember.
No, we don't need to do that.
Not on air. I may do that in my free time. I'd be like, was it? Yeah, this is terrible.
Yeah, I don't think this is as nonsensical as X Nation 2099 and Phoenix Resurrection. I feel like I at least got the through line at some point, even though it really didn't make any sense. So I would probably put this in at 1007.
So below All New Exiles, Infinity 1 and 2, and Ultimatum. And I feel like that's right.
Yeah.
That makes Major X the 1007th worst X-Men comic of all time.
Yes.
2019 was a heck of a year then, because within a month, you got Major X and House of X.
I also just want to point out how like really stupid and petty the first appearance of Major X became to Rob.
Let's talk about this.
Because the Rob did seem to get scooped by Robbie Thompson and Matt Horak, who inserted Major X into a page of Spider-Man Deadpool number 47 without the Rob knowing about it.
Which, 2 things on that. 1, they just put him in an issue. That's on Marvel of, like, getting the release dates right if they really wanted. 2, that's so petty. He doesn't own that character. It's specifically a work for hire thing. Also, 3, the Rob. I know that you made your money on speculators being stupid, and speculators were being stupid in 2019, but boy, you can't just expect that every time.
No, and it's very funny that the Rob is adamant that the first appearance of Major X is a Deadpool variant cover that came out the week before that Spider-Man Deadpool issue, and boy, just splitting hairs so that you can
Well, here's
corner
the
the
thing.
market.
Here's the thing. Matt Horick did a bunch of work with Rob
Yeah,
before this.
It was an
This was
homage.
very much an homage. Like, hey, this guy I know made this new thing. I'm going to put it in this background of it.
Yeah.
Because if everyone starts using the character right away and it feels natural, that's actually better for the character's long-term viability and like people knowing it. Long story short, that's insane that Rob did that. Matt Horick's a good artist. I have 2 Matt Horick things on my wall right now, actually.
Yeah. Well, it's time for our third story, Zach, and this one's a doozy.
This is X-Force Killshot, number 1. The 30th anniversary of X-Force. It's by Rob Liefeld, Chad Bowers on this. Chad's doing the script. Chad, guy who at least at one point listened to our podcast regularly.
Sure.
I want to say this to start out the comic. I want to add this as a giant asterisk. Chad, none of this is about you. I know. Looking at this comic, I know what you're doing, and you're doing your best.
It's one of those things where, they had partnered for Bad Blood, and it's okay. So should we talk about what this is? This is an anniversary special for X-Force's 30th anniversary.
Sure, who cares? But
it literally has 4 or 5 pages of 9-panel grids to introduce the cast, which consists just of variant versions of Cable, Shatterstar, Domino, Major X, and the Thing for some reason.
Well, it goes from Warpath to the Thing to Venompool, who is a new character, Adam.
Sure.
You'll get to learn more about Venompool in Deadpool Batterblood if you ever get around to reading it. You'll also learn about Arcadia.
Oh, okay.
Which is Arcade's sister.
Yeah.
Has Arcade ever had a sister before? No.
Okay. They have to go. They have to go fight Strife, who has pointed.
I think those pages, Adam. I think those pages. By the way, the pages that introduce the characters. I honestly think that's pretty funny. Like they write it as a bit of a joke. Also, they have Domino from the Deadpool 2 movie, which I did like.
Yes. Basically, the plot here is that this team, which consists of over 20 different characters, have to go and fight Strife on an asteroid S, who is basically pointing a giant cable gun that Deadpool or Dreadpool bought online or something. And
so it's the MLF. The MLF is also here.
They're going to blow up the Earth, so this whole team has to go. And it's basically at the end up to Major X, who now suddenly has Cable's techno-organic virus, to save the day by, I guess, stopping Zero from blowing it up. And then on the last page, there's an anti-Zero character that appears. I don't know who that's supposed to be. Alternate
I
Zero.
didn't even notice that was an alternate Zero. I thought that was just Zero. Can I tell you one thing I love about this comic?
Yeah.
And Rob had to do this on purpose.
Yeah.
Do you know how Strife is defeated with the techno-organic virus? If you look at him, this is kind of a gross page. Major X is using his techno-organic virus hand, which is gold, by the way, which is how you know it's important and good, just like Maggot and those Wolverine comics. But he has a gold hand, and he is sticking it through Cable's face with both of his pointy fingers, stabbing his eyes at him.
Oh, that's right.
He's stabbing through his eyes, and that's good.
Yeah.
That's good, actually. Also, then, for some reason, like, X-Force from Uncanny X-Force shows up, but there's a Uncanny X-Force Venompool.
Okay.
This is a nothing comic. I'll say, Chad knows that this needs some work to jump through the scripting, to the point where he makes fun of the fact that Deadpool's weapons disappear and change frequently.
It's complete nonsense. Every
complete
page
nonsense.
is just an excuse for more pinup style floating fighting between two characters that the Rob chose to draw on that page.
This is also ostensibly set during Krakoa, by the way.
They do mention Krakoa. It's very
which is not what anyone was doing at this time.
No.
Cable was doing something different. Strife was doing something different.
Yeah.
All of these characters were doing something different, with the exception of Major X, who has never been doing anything but this.
Yeah, it's bad. I guess it, at least with Chad there, has a slight sense of humor to it.
I would say there is a noticeable difference in tone between this and Major X.
Oh, yeah.
And I believe that comes down to the scripting.
Yeah.
I really do believe Bowers is adding enough into this to make it bouncier.
Mm-hmm.
And like, if you're going to do a Rob Liefeld take on Cable and X-Force again, like, you have to make it kind of stupid. But you have to walk that line of fun, stupid, and bad, stupid.
Yeah. So of the three that we read this week, I think this is probably the one that's the most, like, I guess,
This is the
readable,
least
just
bad.
because it's just silly. And it feels like it knows it's silly and is okay with that. And as long as that's the vibe you're looking for, like, this isn't the worst thing in the world. It's just stupid. So
it's not as good as 969 X-Force Shatterstar, though.
No.
Also, I don't think it's as good as Deadpool versus an X-Force, another comic that Rob just didn't do.
Yeah,
that he was supposed to do, and he just didn't do it.
Well, look, I'm very thankful that we didn't see the Rob drawing a lot of swastikas.
We got Pepe Larraz out of it.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, that's the kind of trade-off that I like to make in my days.
I'm just working my way down. You know what?
Is
this better or worse than Bird Brain Saga at 990?
It's worse than Bird Brain.
Okay. Is it
better than
the X-Men 100th anniversary special, which I know you loathe?
I don't like that comic, though I forget why I don't like it specifically.
Pretty bad. It's pretty bad.
I mean, just bad, but like, I know it's bad. I'm going to be thinking about comics like this constantly.
I think this is probably a little bit above that because it's more fun in quotation marks.
I'm not going to argue that.
Like, it's on par with the absolutely terrible Mark Pacella art of, like, I just want to be clear about something. The Rob,
What If Wolverine was Lord of the Vampires during Inferno?
Yes,
just
the
to
Rob,
finish that thought. Go back.
The Rob is a bad artist, but I can look at it and not, like, there are worse artists, and Mark Pacella is much worse than the Rob.
You also have hated Mark Pacella since a young age.
He's awful. I mean, he's like absolutely terrible. So
the venom that you have for Mark Pacella, a guy who I just wouldn't remember the name of, always, Adam, it always delights me to see you be that level of a hater about something, because that's normally my job.
Oh, man.
But your hate for Mark Pacella, I can't stand in the way of that. So
to be
I
clear,
would say put it above that, but below Bird Brain.
Yeah, I don't know Mark Pacella. Might be a great guy. His artwork, always really bad.
But I understand. I'm going to go see my good friend Greg Land again this weekend. Like,
love this for you. All right,
I'm absolutely bringing something for Greg to sign. I can't wait.
Oh my god! So at 991, the X-Force Killshot Anniversary Special. Now, Zach, I know you wanted to talk briefly about two books that were announced by Marvel at San Diego Comic-Con in 2023 that, for whatever reason, have never appeared. What are they?
Oh, they were Cable First Contact, which was Cable meeting the O5, which I have, based on the timing, I have to think was what they slotted original X-Men in for.
Yeah.
And also there was, what's the name? Supposed to be a Major X sequel series.
Time to Kill, Zach.
Major X Time to Kill, that's what it was, yes. Which I assume would also be more time travel and Major X stuff. None of those appear. None of those happen. We do eventually get Deadpool Team Up, which Rob has decided as his last work that he'll ever do for Marvel this time. He said it before. I don't even think the Rob is. Look, me and the Rob are on the same side as maybe comics don't get treated with the same level of respect as Hollywood. Have we already talked about how the Rob probably was a little annoying on set too, and they maybe just didn't want him around?
Well, I mean, there was that great Hollywood Reporter article about why he was pissed, and it was basically because he was not asked to do a lot of the red carpet and after party stuff that he had been on the previous movies. And the great quote from that that I have now used multiple times in talking about him online is that there was somebody from Marvel who said, we respect the contributions of Rob Liefeld. Rob Liefeld does not respect the contributions of anyone else. And that is pretty much how it boils down to. It's about him getting credit. It is not necessarily about anybody else in the world of comics getting credit. You know, there was another one this past week about how he doesn't trust comic book stores to sell Youngblood because he's coming back with Youngblood, I guess. So he's going to do online
He's ruined my
sales
dreams.
through what's that? Whatnot, the online retailer.
That's just him doing more of the Rob trying to get his from speculators. That's his grift. He's been running that specific grift for 30 years now. I can respect it. I don't agree with it, but I understand that grind set that he has.
I guess
the Rob's folks, this is going to sound counter to everything we've been talking about for the last hour. But if you ever get a chance and you're at a comic convention and there's a Rob Liefeld panel, I strongly encourage you to go. You will never see a more coked out dude arguing with you that he's not on coke.
Making multiple coke references.
He's the one who brought up coke, not me.
Multiple times.
Have him have the most energy and cockiness about what he did because he happened to be in a Spike Lee commercial.
Entertaining or not.
I get it. That's the most famous anyone in comics has been since Stan. So on one hand, yeah.
Sure.
On the other, geez, it's just...
Well, Zach, we did it. We did our
Go see the Rob live. Don't give him money, but do go see the Rob live in concert or whatever.
He still owes some people some apologies. How about that?
Yes.
We did it. We talked about Major X. If you want your own bespoke episode, Battle of the Atom on patreon.com. If you head over to Comics XF, we are still covering X-Manhunt chapter by chapter. It just keeps getting weirder and wilder each unconnected episode.
Hey, why would Warren get surgery to give him more metal bones?
I reviewed that comic with Dan Grote on the same day that we are recording this episode, so check that out because I had similar questions.
It's so insane.
So you can also follow on social, Adam Reck on Blue Sky and Instagram. Zach, do we even know what we're doing next week?
We'll let you guys know in the future. We haven't figured that out yet.
Great.
But until then, I'm sure it'll be good. And we are good because we've been Battle of the Atom and we hope you survived the experience.
Get